So Shakespeare to Gaza was a project that we did. It was very soon after the genocide started. We found the Gaza monologues written by children during the first and second Intifada, who had experienced the bombing and all of that terrible terrorism that was happening in Gaza.
Welcome to our program, A Voice for Justice. My guest today is author Megan Choritz, a South African anti-Zionist activist and campaigner based in Cape Town, known for her advocacy against Israel's colonial and apartheid policies toward the Palestinians. She is currently at the center of a defamation lawsuit brought by UCT professor Adam Mendelssohn after she publicly criticized his inaugural lecture, a case widely described by her supporters as a slap suit. Welcome to the program, Megan.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a real honor.
Thank you. Megan, you have always been vocal on the situation in the occupied Palestinian territories. Today, the West Bank is going through ethnic cleansing policies and measures by the Israeli occupation government. Genocide is going on in Gaza. So how you characterize the situation being an activist watching Palestine from South Africa?
Watching Palestine from South Africa is very, very frustrating, particularly from the point of view of being a Jewish anti-Zionist, because most of the Jews in South Africa are Zionists, and it's incredible to believe that they are not watching the same world that I'm watching. So it's really, really difficult. It's one thing that the South African government took Israel to the ICJ for plausible genocide, well, for genocide, which has been declared plausible. But now what? So now that that's happened, what are we going to do next? It's very, very frustrating, and we all watch it just get worse and worse. And the situation on the West Bank at the moment it's pogroms. As you say, it's ethnic cleansing. And I think all of us activists are feeling increasingly frustrated because we honestly don't know what to do anymore.
Yeah. Now, we all see how the Israeli occupation government and the Zionist movement is invoking the Jewish identity worldwide in order to justify the colonial project and the ethnic cleansing of the Palestinians here. So how do you explain that argument, Megan, and in what context you put it?
It's an absolute, it's a fallacy argument.
Yeah.
And the biggest problem is that the Zionists, the legal entity of Israel, has gotten away with this fallacy for so many years and has built the whole Zionist project on this lie. And so once you see the lie, you can't unsee it. And there is, for anti-Zionist activists, it's very simple. There is nothing Jewish about Zionism, and there is nothing Jewish about the illegal state of Israel. It's anti-Jewish. Zionism is against the principles, the religion, the ethics of Judaism. And Judaism is very, very clear that, number one, Jews do not need and should not ever have a state because we are not a nation. And so the whole thing is built on a fallacy, and it's created this myth of a Jewish homeland, but a Jewish homeland at the expense of the people who live in Palestine. And there were Jews in Palestine who were Palestinian.
Yeah.
So it's an argument that makes no sense at all. The problem is that it's only now that the world is slowly waking up to the great lie, the great fallacy of this illegal state. And it is starting to feel like it's too late.
Yeah. Now, Megan, the people like you who have this voice, and for example, the Israeli historian Alan Pape and some other Israeli historians and writers who speak the same language that you speak, are called
Yes.
in Israel like self-hating Jews. Some describe them as traitors. And you yourself facing now a defamation lawsuit by Mendelssohn over the comments that you made after his lecture at the University of Cape Town. So how you and people like you can defend themselves against such accusations and allegations?
It's very difficult. It's very difficult because I'm only one of a few court cases. There are quite a few court cases where people have been taken to court for hate speech. There are a few defamation cases as well. And this is lawfare. This is the Zionists, the South African Jewish Board of Deputies and the South African Zionist Federation are using these slap suits and these court cases to fight any kind of pro-Palestinian or any kind of anti-Zionist rhetoric. And so they're keeping us in court, and they are keeping us tied up with nonsense. And first of all, it's very draining and exhausting. And the thing is that it's very challenging because people are scared to speak out, and people are scared to say and voice their opinions and make their presence felt and their voices heard in case they're going to get sued. So it's a very, very difficult situation. And one of the other things that we know about in terms of the Zionist lobby and we know about in terms of Zionists in other countries that aren't Israel is that they have access to an enormous amount of money. So fighting these lawsuits is not a problem for them because they have access to huge amounts of funding and they're supported, and it's a real challenge.
Yeah. Now, Megan, if we look at the picture this way, there are many Jewish people who refuse the Zionist movement project and who are pro-Palestinian people rights, just like you. And in Israel, and the basis of the Zionist movement, there are the secular Israelis who support the colonial project, but at the same time, there are the religious nationalist settlers who have the Talmudic rituals and who call for like displacing all of the Palestinians and to have the land between the river and the sea only for the Zionists. So how should we understand the Israeli society, political and social fabric in light of these divisions, if it is correct really to call them divisions now?
So I think what's happened is that obviously in the very beginning, Theodor Herzl and the beginning of the Zionist project, they were not religious at all, they were secular. And they were actually quite critical of religious Jews. But I think what's happened now is that we've got these two separations, but they are equally psychotic. And I think that it's like the secular Jews have got this wild, untamed gang of psychotic, mainly teenagers, who go and are a lawless, rabid, lunatic crew who go and do these things. It's extremism in the weirdest kind of way, because there's absolutely no way that any religion can justify violence and cruelty and destruction. So I personally don't think that there can be a real claim to religion by these people who are speaking the religion. And I think more about the Haredi Jews who really deny the existence of the state of Israel on religious grounds.
Yes.
So I don't think these people are ultimately actually religious. I think they're using some kind of religious mythology to be savages.
Yeah. And the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who is completely on the side of the Israeli settlers and the Israeli extremists who commit crimes against the Palestinians in the West Bank and Jerusalem these days, he is now visiting Washington, and he had received warm welcome from the American President Donald Trump, though he is ICC wanted war criminal. So how we understand the international law and the international call for accountability and human rights and justice?
It makes absolutely no sense. I mean, I was listening to Francesca Albanese earlier today, and this is someone who's been sanctioned by the United States. This is someone who can't use her bank account. Her daughter is an American citizen. And so there is definitely this complete erosion of international law. And I think as South Africans, it's really, really deeply concerning, because if we look at how apartheid was treated and how South Africa was isolated, and there were proper boycotts and sanctions and divestment, and South Africa, white apartheid South Africa, was forced to change. What's happened for me with the illegal state of Israel is that actually they've just gotten bolder and bolder, because no one has been able to stop them from doing anything.
Yeah. And talking about your personal life, Megan, in order for our viewers to know that you are a writer, you're a novelist, and your debut novel is Lost Property, which discusses the situation of a family, inheritance, betrayal, and wounded mother. But dramatically, you shifted your focus towards genocide in Palestine. So if you tell me about the cause of that shift and how it is possible to coordinate in writing between personal rupture and confronting political violence and genocide.
I think that for most creative people, politics is personal, and you can't separate politics and art and what you believe in. So, because I've been very lucky. I have an Israeli cousin who was born in Israel and still lives there, and she was the first person who managed to teach me out of my Zionist mentality, and so I was a young person when I suddenly realized that everything that I had learned was completely wrong and was a lie, and that I hadn't been told anything about the truth. I think I was 20 when I heard the word Nakba. I had never heard it before. So, and I think a lot of people growing up with Zionism and Zionist, for a lot of people it's the same thing. But when you are a creative person and when you are a writer, what you're really asking about is what makes us and then what breaks us. And it's when we break and we open, then the stories evolve, and then they're all the same. The stories are all the same. They're all about human rights. They're all about oppression. They're all about the terrible things that we do to each other. And sometimes it can be small, it can be in a family, and then sometimes it can be bigger, it can be a community, it can be a country. South Africa is going through a terrible thing at the moment where undocumented foreigners are being targeted from Zimbabwe and elsewhere in Africa and are being kicked out. It's violence, it's hatred, it's Afrophobia, and I just watch that mindset affecting all the world, and it's a very, very, very dangerous place. And the only thing that we can do is respond creatively.
Yeah, and at the same time, you directed Shakespeare to Gaza. Okay, what drew your attention to Shakespeare? And people might ask, what a 16th century English playwright has to do with what's happening in Gaza and the West Bank these days? So, what is your answer to the people asking this question?
So Shakespeare to Gaza was a project that we did. It was very soon after the genocide started. We found the Gaza monologues written by children during the first and second Intifada, who had experienced the bombing and all of that terrible terrorism that was happening in Gaza. So we did a reading of the monologues, and one of the monologues was written by a young man called Ali, and he writes a monologue where he asks Shakespeare, he says to Shakespeare, get up, wake up, come and help us. This is not a Midsummer Night's Dream. This is a nightmare. We are being washed. We are going to be washed into the sea. We are buried under the rubble. And he writes this really powerful monologue, and that gave us the idea. And we thought, if Ali is talking to Shakespeare in this call, then we are going to use Shakespeare and the Gaza monologues and put them together. And it was an incredibly successful project. We've done a couple of versions of it with different casts, and people are very moved because Shakespeare is very emotional, and Shakespeare is all about the oppressed, the stranger, the other. And what was also very interesting and quite extraordinary for me, because I'm a writer and I'm also a performer, is that I ended up doing some of the Shylock monologues. And there's so much about anybody who is oppressed in those words, in those monologues, that you can't help but see what they mean.
Yeah, and my final question to you, Megan, as we are talking about the narrative and literature and the playwright, Israel killed many Palestinian artists and many Palestinian authors and poets, and the first was the poet Al-Harir. So the Palestinian narrative was targeted by Israel. So how authors and writers in support of justice around the world could make up for that and keep the momentum of the Palestinian narrative and the Palestinian story worldwide?
We have to keep performing and speaking and using Palestinian poetry, Palestinian music. Now on the 18th of July, we did a beautiful concert. There is a composer, Mahmoud Abu Warda, who is in exile now, and we got musicians to perform his music, and we used poetry written by Palestinians and performed those. For me, that's a very, very powerful way of keeping the creative part of Sumud alive.
Megan, it has been a great pleasure having you in the program. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching. And from me, Usama Nazal, have a nice time.